house is firing. We are now going to turn to the speaking portion of our meeting, and our primary prepared speaker today is Randy Gooden. Today, Randy will be delivering a 6 to 8 minute custom speech. Custom meaning it's not a part of a specific Pathways project, but it is unique to him, and the title of it is The Quarter and You. As we mature in this modern world, we're exposed to many challenges which can leave a lasting impression upon us. Are your challenges leaving you feeling depleted and sometimes lacking self-worth? Today, you will hear a contrast between quarters and the human experience in hopes of you walking away knowing a little more about your own personal value. Please help me welcome to the podium Randy Gooden with his speech, The Quarter and You.
Good morning, Toastmasters and guests. We will get used to that. I'm so sorry. I've been in Greater Greenwood Toastmasters so long, and it's always so early in the morning. So my apologies. Good afternoon. It's great to see you today. Today I want to talk with you about quarters and you, and draw a parallel of how things are formed up and how it makes an impression upon us, and how sometimes we can get lost in it. Let me begin by explaining the process. Quarters are formed from two different materials, copper and nickel. In order to form a quarter, the first part of the process is that the copper has to be clad with nickel. Much like the human experience, two came together to form something entirely new, you. That is just the beginning of the process. From there, the material is cut to a perfect diameter. It's a standard diameter that we've had ever since the beginning of coinage in America. It was settled upon a long time ago, and it hasn't changed. From that point, it is forced into a very tight space to form what is called the stacking ridge. Now, I place quarters on each row of the tables. Those are for you to look through, and if you'll look at the quarters, you'll see around the very outer perimeter what is called the stacking ridge. And you'll also notice that it's also got that tooling around the edge to help with the stacking as well. From there, it is sent to a coining machine. Now, I usually do this with a slideshow, so I apologize that I can't show you the machine today. But it's a machine that uses a tremendous amount of pressure to form the impressions that you see on the quarter, what we know as the heads and the tails. Now, I've seen these machines in person. I used to work in the steel industry a long time ago, and we used them to straighten steel parts. These things emit a tremendous amount of pressure. The ones that we were using were over 30 tons of pressure that they would apply to steel to make those impressions that you see on a quarter. So it takes a lot to make an impression. But just as it was in tooling with steel, so it is with the quarters. Sometimes the dies will get nicked. Sometimes a foreign object will get in there. Sometimes they misspot them when they put them in there. So it's not always a perfect impression that's made. This is somewhat how life can be. We're forced into tight spots that make us feel uncomfortable. They leave an imprint on us that never fades. It can be from family, it can be from friends, it can be from work, it can be from education. It can be a variety of things in the environment that make an impression upon our lives. We take those impressions, we develop them within ourselves, and then we in turn make impressions upon others in our life. It is important to note that I told you how a quarter is formed, how it's gone from a raw material, two raw materials actually becoming one brand new material, how it went through the cutting, the forming, the stamping. But I want you to notice one thing. We've done all this inside the factory. And at this moment, as perfect or imperfect as that quarter may be, it has absolutely zero value. None. Now I want to shift just a little bit towards us. With technology the way that it is, and as fast as it is advancing, with the world at our fingertips, what used to be found in volumes of encyclopedias around the world is now at our disposal in a moment's notice. We used to have to search things out. I don't know how many of you recall, but going to the public libraries when you used to have to go through the card files just to find out where things were, and then you had to go and find the materials that you needed. That has all changed so much, and now we hold within our pockets the power to see the world in a moment. Is that good? Yeah, it can be good. It can be used for your good. Leaders today, such as Elon Musk, will even admit to you that his children are educated largely by Reddit and YouTube. And I'm sure if we were to query the vast majority of the population around us, we would find that he's not alone. It may be intentional or it may be unintentional, but it does happen. Well, we have to be careful with that. There's a tremendous amount of information out there that can give us good impressions, but we also have to be careful of the bad impressions that can be out there. And what I mean by that, especially the youth of today, are measuring themselves against standards that we never had to. They're not made aware of how long a person had to take to do their hair, to do their makeup, whether they got false teeth in or whatever it may be. You're given a momentary glimpse into something that may not be a total reality. And yet we measure ourselves against that. We measure ourselves against people's success with money, with what they drive, but we don't know the struggles that they're having on the back end. So we have to be very careful with that. And we would think with all this available that life would be so much happier. But did you know that it's predicted that by the year 2050, the international suicide rate will be 50%. Think about that. That's 26 years from now. Half of the world's population is expected to be committing suicide. We can't meet the standards. Indiana, in and of itself, has a higher rate than the national standard throughout the U.S. We must be careful with this. It's making an impression that is not always easy to overcome. Maybe you feel like you can't meet those standards. Maybe you feel like I don't have much worth because I am not like this. There's one thing to remember. I told you, everything makes an impression upon you, just like the quarter. But I told you the quarter had no value. The reason why is because the quarter was not shared yet. The quarter never left the factory. Your value and my value isn't shared. Google can only hold so much information. AI can only try and fake you out so much. But it cannot express the emotions, the pain, the joy, everything in your life that you feel and that you are able to share with someone and maybe help them overcome a situation where they feel that they don't have no worth. Now, I stacked quarters on your tables. You can look through those. You will find some of those quarters are discolored, some of them are faded, some of them are dented, some are nicked, some of them the president is facing to the left, some to the right. There's all kinds of differences. But yet, if I take any of them to the bank, do you think they will reject them? No. Because when I share that quarter's value is not lost in how tarnished or whatever is wrong with it. It is simply the quarter. Our value is in sharing and going out there and making a difference in our world. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Randy. And thanks for the buck.
You're welcome. Enjoy the coffee.
Now we come to the light-hearted, interactive, everybody participates part of our program with table topics. And Mark, if you would remind everybody what it's about and then launch in with your fun questions. Welcome, Mark Walton, our table topics master.
Thank you, Madam Toastmasters and guests. This is a trap. There's so much we could talk about in table topics. Purdue has lost. Some of us survived the eclipse. The Indiana mud crop is in full bloom. We could talk about any of those things, but those are the types of things we talk about in Toastmasters impromptu sessions that are lighthearted and not very important. We don't pay much attention to them. We can ooze meaningless platitudes easily. But if our speech is to be efficacious, occasionally we're going to have to deal with some of the monsters out there. Those awful things that lurk in the woods and are real and we know about them and we read about them. So I'm going to give you some serious questions, but I'll give you 3 to choose between so you're not trapped too much. First question you could choose. What do you look for in a political candidate? Second, how do you acquire information about a political candidate? By the way, please do not name any political candidates in that. The third one's a real tough one. Who wants to wrestle a monster? What should happen in the Israeli-Hamas war, and how? These are serious questions. This is not the lighthearted stuff. But I'm going to start off by asking Matt, what do you think? Matt, choose your clue.
Thank you so much, Mark. Those are some great questions to choose from. I'm going to just leave that Israeli-Hamas thing over here on the side, I think. What was the first one? How do you choose the candidate? What do you look for in a political candidate? Well, that's a great question. In Toastmasters, this is called delaying what you think about it. But what do I look for? Basically, it's red or blue, you know. Maybe I'm more of a red guy, maybe I'm more of a blue guy sometimes. Maybe I'm just purple. I don't really know exactly which way it needs to go sometimes. But for the most part, whenever it comes to candidates, I don't really like to think about the presidential candidates for this. I might speak a little bit more towards who we look for our local candidates. You know, the people that are going to maybe decide issues that are a little bit more impactful for us personally. I know I've had situations come up in my life where things were going on with changes of nearby land uses to where I live, and I had an opinion of how I thought it should go. And I remember Andrew was there right beside me whenever I was in front of the council, you know, trying to make my play in regards to what I thought should happen. Apparently my political clout was 0, so it's totally ineffective. The deal had already been done, but that's okay. But, you know, I like to find candidates that kind of can understand those that they're serving. You know, whenever it comes to a candidate, they have a role and they have constituents that they're serving. So I really would like to find my candidates to be someone that just simply understanding of their community and those that they work for and would like to listen to those that they're serving over. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you. Dan, want to give it a shot? Dan. Your awful choices are, what do you look for in a political candidate? How do you acquire information about a political candidate? Or Israel or Hamas?
Okay. Very political. All right. Well, a lot of times, you know, what aligns with your political beliefs have a lot to do with your experiences. Today we live in a time where it seems like our political views and stances are at odds. You know, maybe even someday a civil war or something greater might happen. And each side holds beliefs that are precious. And I think, you know, we need to look at each other's views and hold them as precious, whether it be right or left. It's right wing or left wing, it's still a bird. And for it to fly straight, the wings have to be aligned. And we should, you know, have the wings aligned. We should be together. And right now our country's not. And I don't know what it's going to take, whether it be prayer or fasting or just stating your political belief or voting your way. But I think each of us have a view, each of us have different experiences, and we should listen to each opinion and regard it in high estate. Thank you.
I like the analogy, I think. 2 wings, yeah, I like that a lot. Andrew, would you like to give one of those a shot?
Okay. What do you look for in a candidate? How do you get information about the candidate? Or
War.
I'm not even touching the last one about Israel Hamas, but I don't think I can really tackle the first one without tackling the second one as well. Because what you look for in a candidate is someone you can trust. And then there's the question of how do you know whether or not you can trust them? You have to do your research, you have to look at their past voting records, sometimes even who they associate with, and that's usually on the political side. That can be red or blue. And I've really been on all sides of the spectrum of that, and what it has led me to is becoming more of an independent. And it's really hard to be an independent in this world because everything is so polarized. It is red or blue, but it depends on where you get your information. Because you have one presentation of events and the news and what the issues really mean that will say something completely opposite of what another side will say. And it's just a matter, it's just an easy process of pushing a button on your remote control to be completely different versions of reality fed to you. So, you know, you have to do a lot of deep investigation, and you have to look beyond the channels that you normally look at to be able to know whether or not it's actually relevant and accurate. So, I encourage everyone to do your research.
Yeah.
Do
Thank you, Dan. Nicely put, if I don't mind saying so myself. Leah, would you like to tackle one of those?
Sure.
Sure. Your choices are, what do you look for in a political candidate? Or, how do you acquire information about a political candidate? And then there's that monster lurking in the corner, Israel and Hamas.
Okay, both of those are a great question, and I'm gonna similarly talk about both of them. So what do I look for? I look for what are their beliefs. Either side, red or Blue, I look for beliefs. What do they believe in? What do they hold very strongly? And we can see this now, how we see beliefs back and forth. And we don't know what they actually believe. In person, similarly to our last speaker, we see research, their history. What do they believe in? What is their personal history, and what do they believe in? And how did they get there? How have they grown their influence in our country, and what do they believe in? I think we hold most strongly our beliefs, and all beliefs are very important. We see that in all of our candidates. They believe in very important things, and we see that we need to research, just as our last speaker talked about. We need to research through different articles, sources, so we can get a different version of all the sides. We can see that some sides are more red or blue than others. So we have to see all the views of what side, so we can make the best informed decision that we can. So what I hold most important is belief and history. And how we find that, we need to find all different sources. We need to look through history and what they believe and what do they stand for to get the most informed decision. And I'd like to help you and think about what sources you're actually looking through, so you can make the most informed decision as well when in this current election process. Thank you.
I'm beginning to feel better about our youngest generation. Marcy, which of these horrible topics do you want to address?
In 2003, I was in the Army. And in the Army, I was a trumpet player known as just the bugler. I had the esteemed pleasure of traveling to an amazing beach without the ocean, the middle of Iraq. Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, the question I want to answer today is based upon my previous experience. You see, I've been in a war zone. I've been to war, and I was at a position in time where it was not agreed upon that we should even be there in the first place. So that is why I want to talk about the Israel-Hamas situation. As a civilization, as humans, we have never agreed on everything anytime. And that is why we have those different perspectives, as Olivia was talking about. We come from different experiences, and as a result of those experiences, it forms our perception of the world, our view of the world, and what we hold to be the most important things that we should pursue. I was on the side of being very happy about what we were doing in Iraq, and I know that this may not be a popular opinion. When I was in a convoy as a soldier going through the streets of Iraq, we had families come out to the street. It was like we were on parade. It was not a rejection of our involvement. It was excitement and enthusiasm because we were standing for something we believed in, which was to liberate a population that was being run by a bully. And I know the premonition, the reason we got there may not have been the right one, which I would also argue on a different topic or on a different day, but we were there and the people were appreciative. Then they would come up to you and say, okay, we're glad you're here. Saddam's gone, when are you leaving? And therein lies the difficulty. It's not just during the war, it's the aftermath of the war. And I think what it comes down to is nothing to do with how awful or good one side is or the other. It is our inability today to see the dignity that lies within each and every person that stands in front of us, no matter what their views are. I think that could lead to some world peace. Mr. Tabletop
Thank you. Marcy was courageous not only to go there, but to actually address the monster question. Thank you. Annette, are you doing the next evaluation?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Then Karen.
Term topics evaluator.